can dream it, you can do it.
I promise I'll follow my dreams. Fucking Bastion. What a terrible kid. All right. Hello, and welcome to the most excellent 80s movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker, a comedian, and a Potter podcaster come together to adventure on dragging back through the 80s movies that we love and hate to love and love to hate with all the enthusiasm of someone trying to avoid a great and terrible nothingness. I'm Chrissy Lenz. Wait, that part doesn't come now. Now we talk about how we're watching The Neverending Story, which is a movie from 1984. Which, by the way, 1984, I thought it was much later than that. Anyway, Neverending Story.
What is the secret of this enchanted book? What wonders are hidden within its pages? What magical spell does it cast on all who read it? What is the secret of the never-ending story?
But that's impossible!
Enter a world where a young boy's imagination becomes a vivid reality. The world of Atreyu and Artax, a rockbiter, and a good and kind gnome. A world that is vast and eternal, treacherous and dazzling, unforgettable and free. For anyone who's ever made a wish, believed in a fantasy, or had a dream, this is the Neverending Story.
This is the Neverending Story. Now's the part where I say I'm Chrissy Lenz, director of National Comedy Theater, Phoenix, and improviser and comedian. And with me, as always, is
Nathan Blackwell, filmmaker with Squishy Studios.
And joining us today is a very special guest.
Hi, Andrea Kaufman with Owl Post on the Nerd Party Network.
Yes, very good. You should definitely check that one out. We'll give you instructions at the end for where you can find it, even though she just sort of told you. Go to the Nerd Party, Google it, you can find it. But at the end, you'll get specific information. Okay, The Neverending Story, 1984.
What's your history with this one?
I have seen this, of course, dozens of times, so many times, but I don't think I ever really liked it. I think I'm sort of ambivalent towards it.
There's a nostalgia factor there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's things that I like, but there are also things that I just hate. Really don't like at all.
We're starting
strong
saucy on
feeling,
this
yeah.
one.
But I've seen it a bunch of times. What about you, Mr. Blackwell?
This was one of those movies in grade school that was like kid safe that they would play like on half days or they'd play in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
This is like the movies that kind of include would be like The Princess Bride, you know. It's like,
Yes.
okay, great, let's round up all the kids, let's just show them a movie. And this is one of those movies. I think the first time I saw it was in one of those kind of like settings, and so it wasn't something. It was basically forced upon me, and then
Like you didn't go see it in the theater?
right, I did like one of those like weird like what movies did I see as a child, and I went through IMDb and all the years, movies, and then I was like, I was only seeing like 3 movies in the theater a year, or 3 or 4 movies, and so it was.
Which is so foolish because it was so cheap then.
If only you knew what you knew now.
Yeah. And so, obviously, when I got older, saw more movies. When you get to the point where you know what's coming out, and you can kind of like demand your parent to take you, then it's like by the time I like the Karate Kid and things like that was out, I was watching a lot more movies. But No, and then we didn't have a VHS player until I want to say 87, 88. And so it was just kind of like when you caught it on TV.
Which it was on often, because as much
Yeah.
as your grade school wanted you to watch it time and time again,
Yeah.
networks were also just like, yeah, put on Neverending Story. They'll love that.
It's a safe one. Like
Yeah.
there's no real violence, like
that's
fighting
true.
violence. I mean, there's a lot of emotional terror and,
Yes.
and horribleness. But in terms of just like,
It's a lot of philosophical
it's almost kind of like
violence.
Yeah, exactly. And that's okay.
Is it? Okay, good.
I have a theory that trauma you want to introduce some trauma to kids. Safe trauma, obviously.
This is like controlled trauma.
Hashtag Avengers.
Hashtag see
Yeah.
it basically like hashtags
Infinity War.
Yeah. Seeing like a movie maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 years earlier than you should have.
Yeah.
I think, like seeing Nightmare on Elm Street when you're 12 or even like 10 or something like that,
Either makes you a murderer or a filmmaker.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad you came down on the side you came down on.
Like things like that, like that and RoboCop and stuff like that. I think it's okay
Yeah.
to kind
Yeah.
of like, and then a lot of the kids' movies were scary, especially like
Yes.
not even in the 80s, but like Grimm's fairy tales are fucked up, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's okay to give kids some nightmare fuel. I think they got to wrestle with some of this stuff before it becomes real,
Okay.
you know.
Interesting. And
The
have you seen
two
this
parents
movie?
in the room are like,
Me as the one person on this podcast who doesn't have a child, I want to traumatize your children. I want to traumatize your children.
Well, I do often think about that, though, like as a parent, weighing out my entertainer, like wanting my kids to, go into the family business and be successful. Every person you admire will be like, well, what do you think shaped you into the artist you are? And it's like, oh, my parents never cared if I watched R-rated movies, if I watched this movie way before I should have. I was listening to Richard Pryor when I was a kid, and you're just like, oh, okay. Maybe I should do that to my kids. Just like make them
That's
watch
the thing.
things.
You don't need to allow it. They will do it. It's like all the times like we rented like we snuck out and rented like The Terminator. My mom had no clue. Like the times we snuck into or did a sleepover and we saw Rambo and Nightmare on Elm Street, my mom had no clue. And so they're going to do it as long as there's other kids around to tempt them.
Yeah, to the dark side.
Or
To the
just,
dark side.
Or the kids themselves have an interest. Like my mom said, no G.I. Joes. They've got guns. They shoot people. No G.I. Joes. So then I wanted them so badly because of that.
So I should tell my son, no cleaning your room. It is forbidden.
you cannot
You
have.
cannot.
Good luck
You know
with
what?
that.
You cannot eat your broccoli. It's just not
Don't.
allowed.
I'm going to put it on a plate, but if you touch it, you're in trouble.
I don't think it's going to work.
I don't
that
think so
way,
either.
but Good try.
Did you see the movie?
I saw it. This was the first time I saw it. I
What?
was -1 when this movie came out.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So by the time I was in grade school, this was not what they were showing.
No.
I don't think they showed really movies like that by the time I was in grade school.
Do you remember ever being shown?
I feel like I remember having seen it at some point. I just couldn't recall it.
Like familiar imagery.
Yeah, I definitely have seen Falkor before, but I feel like
Yes.
that's Family Guy's fault and not.
Probably. A lot of this movie filtered itself into pop
Mainstream,
culture in
yeah.
a
Yeah, it's
pretty
kind of like
major
The
way.
Last Starfighter. You know, it's
Yeah.
like there
Yeah.
was stuff that you knew about it.
Even though I had
having
never seen it,
Never
yeah.
seen it.
Well, I'm so glad that we're going to get a real fresh perspective then from you. Because, yeah, I feel like this movie is so, like, I'm so steeped in it that I'm almost, like, immune to it.
I can see
You
that.
know?
Yeah, I haven't seen it like in 20 years.
So it was almost like a
but-
fresh watch.
Yeah, so it almost was, but there was a lot of things that were obviously familiar. But yeah, give us your fresh take.
I don't know why you would show it to kids. That's mostly my question. I just thinking about, and it's just, I think, a cultural thing, like thinking about trying to show it. I mean, my little one's too little to
Yeah.
understand something like this, but like, I don't know. Like, it was weirdly dumbed down and like,
And yet
I
it's
don't know.
about, it's dumbed down, but it's about some really heavy, dark shit.
Yeah, like
this is a movie about grief
Like there's
and loss
Yeah.
and loss of innocence.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is very much so 80s. It's 80s.
yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
Like just there's a few things that reminisce are reminding me of other 80s movies. Like had moments where I flashed to like E.T. with the parental neglect, and
Unattended kids just
unattended
roaming
kids,
the streets.
stealing the book. That's not a big deal, but I was like, wait, he just took that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's just a few moments where in the movies and the music is definitely 80s rific. That was yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like something that I've noticed in a lot of 80s movies, 3 things in particular. One, gross, gooky slime, like the slime and the worm eating.
Yeah.
I feel like that happened too much. And the snot from the big-ass turtle. And then, like...
Who was a dick, by the way.
Yeah.
A total asshole.
And then there's, like, an elderly couple that's married that's going to help you along the way, but they hate each other.
Yeah. That's the second time we've had her as like a sorcerer. She's Finn Rizal from Willow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is, again, she was a big turnoff to me in Willow, which I also didn't necessarily like. Yeah.
It was just the dynamic back then between like an old married couple is that they just didn't like each
They
other.
hate each
So,
other.
good luck for all our marriages right there.
Yeah.
You just don't like each other after 40 years of being married and living in the middle of nowhere
And being a gnome that lives outside of an oracle.
with a wizard.
So, beginning of this movie is that we learn that our young hero, Bastian, his mom has recently died, and his dad, whose major dad, is like, look, kid, it's time to grow up. Get over it. How long do you want us to miss your dead
hours.
mom?
Yeah.
As he drinks OJ mixed with raw egg. Oh,
Yeah.
it's horrible. Here, man, I'll show you how to be a man. And I'll put hair on your chest at 8 years old.
Yeah.
Going on and on and on about your dead mom. What 10-year-old is this sad after a week?
It's time to grow up and put aside childish things.
Yeah,
Like
with-
unicorns.
That's really the theme. It's basically that it's set up. It's like, it's time to put away childish things and to be an adult, and then the kind of spirit of Narnia, Fantasia, is we need imagination.
Yeah.
Your imagination is important.
Yes, and the nothing is the absence of caring.
Yeah.
Right?
I couldn't quite tell how old is he supposed to be, because we've said 8 and 10 and 12. He clearly has a school that has periods, but he looks like he's like 7.
Let's see if the interwebs
Can
knows.
the Googles help us here? Because I have no idea how old he is supposed to be.
But yeah, so this is an interesting production. So it's a German financed film. And I think it's based off of
Really? It's
Yeah.
a very German movie.
Yeah.
Oh, the emptiness of everything will swallow us whole.
I hate the youth.
Death of imagination will save us.
Yeah, and it definitely has that kind of European production
Like
design.
feel. Yeah.
Yeah, with like the different characters and the designs. It's kind of interesting. It's been kind of like Legend, where you can tell it's not like, because it's like the American like fantasy movies. They're all kind of pulling from the same kind of looks and what other people have done, and so it definitely has that kind of European feel that makes it feel different. But unlike some other kind of European or British knockoffs that put like Kroll or things like that, it's like clearly they just dropped in one American and then everyone else is like that. It's like this. I don't think there was anyone with a German accent. It was just like the feel and the look was a little different than what you're used to.
It's like a German production with American actors filmed in Canada.
Yeah.
It's an international delight. It's got a little bit of everybody. It definitely has like some very German sensibilities.
Well, I feel like that also brings the darker, right? Like a lot of the United States didn't do the darker kid stuff. Like they kind of dabbled in it, but those were mostly animated. Mostly we went for the lighthearted, really bright, films and fantasy films, because we didn't want to expose our kids to stuff like that, as we've clearly made evident here tonight.
You know what would be fun if the boy's horse sinks into a bog of sadness. That will teach children not to love things.
Yeah. Oh man.
So, jumping right in from the very beginning, unintended bullies throw him into a fucking dumpster and nobody cares. And then he runs into the bookstore and that bookstore guy...
No, then he gets out of the dumpster and they try to force him back into the
get back in
dumpster.
that
Because
dumpster.
what bully just sits out there and is like, he's going to stay in this dumpster, y'all.
Efficient bullies. It's like normally like the bully sequence takes 3 times as long.
Yeah.
These dudes were efficient. I have to give them that. They were in and out. They wanted money. They were aggressive. They tossed him in the dumpster. You know, as 80s movie child bullies go, I'm going to rank them in the top 10.
I'm okay. I agree with you because they were
Top
also
10 of like
really
being
mean.
Terrifying, like as being appropriate bullies. And what's our scale here?
Efficient.
Efficient. All right. Efficient.
They're the best at being bullies.
All right.
As opposed to some of those bullies that don't really pull it off, like in E.T. where they like at the end they're like, "Yeah, we'll ride bikes with you. We've been shitty to you this whole movie, but I would love to ride bikes with you."
Or like Biff, where he's just really a dumbass.
Yeah.
But not actually.
No, he's not
much
very
of a
efficient.
bully.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
competition
Yeah,
for
that's
this.
true.
These
That's true.
spots.
That's
In the
true.
80s, for sure, there's a bully around every corner. But he goes
They're also
into...
thorough. They're also thorough.
Yeah,
They're efficient
you
and
could even
thorough
say
bullies.
you could even say like there's bullies like in Big Trouble in Little China where they try to rob them. You know, they're at the airport. Bunch of bullies.
All right, so we have the bullies.
Bullies
Okay.
and assholes were just everywhere in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it was fine
I'm
to
glad
treat
we got
people-
rid of them. The 90s was so much more prosperous.
Yeah, everything's fine now.
But now they're coming back around.
Now
you know?
everybody's cool to each other. We all like respect what other people want to enjoy and don't overly criticize.
Especially people's differences.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really stay. And the internet is such a fun and free place to
You
be.
really can find a lot of
Now
encouragement.
there's just so
there.
much time
Yeah.
to do things like podcasting.
But I want to talk about the guy at the bookshop because, like,
Yeah, so
this
he
is
runs
the-
away from the dumpster. He
Yes.
goes into the bookshop.
and that guy is like the
Cranky old man.
prototype of like gatekeeping nerd, right? He's like the leader of the you're not cool enough to like books.
No, he's
Yeah.
the leader of the get off my lawn.
Yes.
Get off my lawn, kids.
Yeah, I've
Oh,
just-
you wouldn't know what to do with this book. You can't have this book. This book is mine.
I like how he proved that he could read by listing off a bunch of super common books that most kids have read.
Kid, you basic. But yeah, so basically the old man he's reading a book and he's like, "What are you reading?" And it's like, "Oh, you're not prepared for this because this book takes it to the next level. Like it's a dangerous book or blah 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 blah." Basically, he's saying, "This is the key to like the secret realm. Don't take it; it's too dangerous. Now I'm going to walk away and hide behind this chair."
What's this? A phone call?
Yeah.
Goodbye.
And so
But you expect him to like facilitate. You're expecting he was like, oh, that's good. He did that. That's exactly what he's supposed to do.
and he
But then
never
they-
comes back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never kind of get confirmation if that was intentional or if he's just really a dumbass because
yeah.
you can't really tell
That's one of the
I believe we do get confirmation of that in the second movie.
that it's intentional. Was my guess. My guess
Yeah.
is that it was
Yeah.
intentional. Otherwise, he's just the worst bookkeeper ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because one of the issues with this movie is that the ending is kind of rushed. You know, like
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, and there's a lot of threads that
They
don't-
run
that
out of
don't-
stuff to do halfway through the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of threads that don't get picked up again. They're like his dad, you know, like the bookkeeper, like returning the book.
The fact that he was missing for 24 hours
And nobody knew
in
or
the
gave
attic
a
of his
shit.
school
Yeah, there's
with
not-
his little sandwich where he's like, "Not too much, Bastion. A tray you wouldn't eat it. We have to make it last." Shut up, kid.
I'm sorry. It was what was with the like fucking attic key and the broken attic key labeled box right
Yeah.
by the door to the attic.
Yeah,
What?
there's,
Also, there's a missing child. The first place you look is in the goddamn unattended elementary school attic. Oh, he's 12, by the way.
Okay.
okay, good.
So he's like sixth grade.
So the
Sixth
school
grade.
has a secret attic full of candles and,
And yes.
and a mattress.
I'm sure the
I guess
ol-
that's like a gym pad.
I was gonna say that's the only thing that's gonna happen there is this kid is gonna read. Who? I'm sure he's supposed to get interrupted. This is middle school, and it is an unintended dark corner of a school in the 80s.
This is where normally more nefarious things happen.
How
at
many
this
teen
school.
pregnancies happened on that mattress?
And then the mothers all have to get machetes and go avenging. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of other 80s things happened up there. But I do, like, I can relate to him being like, oh no, I'm going to hide from everybody and read this book all day, and you can't stop me. I get it. I'm with him there.
I am
Otherwise,
too.
Bastion is a
So-
total tool.
Point in the
Yeah.
pro section. There we go.
I do give him a pro for not drawing horses, but drawing unicorns.
Yeah.
I do give him points for that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's reading the book, and just like The Princess Bride, most of the movie is the book that he's reading.
Mm-hmm.
And then the magic of the story is, as we're going along, there's some interaction between him and the book characters. That's part of the...
And the main character, I have to say, Atreyu, right? Who is
So
a warrior of the plains people.
A warrior kind of the same age as him.
Yes. Who's from, like, supposed to be, like, a Native American sort of tribe that lives within this very weird universe where there are people who have 4 faces and, like, everybody just looks like...
Crazy.
Like a German would be like, oh, the children will read this book. You know what they would love? People with 4 faces.
These are characters they do not want in the dark cloud.
And you see, and
Crystal.
That goes fast.
all I'm hearing is like, okay, so Indians are make-believe.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the message you're giving there by taking him from a warrior tribe of the plains, along with all of these other fictional characters.
One is a giant chess piece. We don't know why. I always thought Atreyu was a girl, even though they say over and over and over that Atreyu is a boy. I was just like, no, I'm pretty sure Atreyu is a girl. And so, like, props to this 80s movie, and of course, you know, that probably is something German about it as well. As it's very gender non-binary. Like, he's just like, I'm Atreyu. What's up? I could be a girl.
I guess I know. I guess I never thought
There's
that.
stories for everyone.
Yeah, right. It is. Everyone, come take a piece of this. But yeah, I definitely always thought Atreyu was a girl.
I, having seen this for the first time and not knowing what to expect, because I like to go into most films relatively uninformed, because then I feel like I get to experience it, and whatever I know of the film is like what the filmmaker wants me to know of the film, right? Which hopefully the filmmaker here would appreciate a little bit of.
Yeah.
But I feel like I expected Atreyu to actually be Bastion.
Yeah.
Like the first watch through, I was like, is that the same kid? No, that's not the same kid. Why is that not the same kid? I thought he was supposed to be in the story. So it wasn't until we got some of those different indicators that he's interacting with the story, but not in the story, that I was like, okay, that's why he's not the character.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a later thing that's kind of revealed. And I wish it would have been, it was definitely nice towards the end where it's kind of like revealing layer after layer that he's actually the, spoiler alert. So Bastion is actually kind of like...
came out 15 years ago. I think it's fine.
25
25 years ago?
This movie came out
35 years ago.
Thank you for making me that young, though. I appreciate it.
I have to go, everyone. Goodbye. I'm going to go live under the sea now. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
You just
Spoiler.
aged me, yeah.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so Bastion is the person who saves the day in the story.
I mean, eventually. How long
That was
does
a
it take him?
mouthful.
It's like, give her a name. No, surely not.
I'd love-
Say a goddamn name, Bastion. Bastion, by name. Kid in the attic at Wilson Elementary School. Any name.
Just say a fucking name out loud.
Shout a noun. Any noun.
I love that he runs to the window and screams it out, though. That's the best
And
part.
then they surge the music up so you can't understand what he's saying.
And that I've read is intentional so that, like, each child can imprint whatever they want the name to be.
Just to be clear, the captions do not
Do they?
tell you what the name is.
Yeah. Because it's intentionally not
Yeah.
clear.
But he's yelling Moonchild. Is what he's yelling.
Yeah, that's what
That
he
was
does.
his mom's name? No one named Moonchild is married to Major Dad. No.
Is that his mom's? How do we think? Wait, okay, maybe we've gone too far. I don't know how you think that's his mom's name.
Because he said his mom had a beautiful name. And then he says, she should have my mom's name. My mom had a beautiful name. And then later the Empress, who we haven't even mentioned yet, says, he's already chosen a name. He just has to call it out to me.
Well, it is Moonchild.
Do we think maybe his mom was just like a straight up stone cold hippie?
Yeah.
And she was like married to Major Dad just as like a counterpoint?
We could get real dark here and decide what that relationship looked like, too, if you want. Or we can move on.
Let's move on. No. But the whole point is to try and save the Empress, which is like, I also wasn't sure if that was a boy or girl. Like, clearly it's a girl, but as a kid I was like, I'm not sure. she wears this little diamond here on her forehead, but she's also like a 12-year-old girl who sits in a clamshell.
Which is supposed to be some big reveal, I'm imagining, because you don't know that it's a child the whole time until you see her, and then you're like, oh, it's another child. They're all children.
They're all children.
Wait, children are running this country?
But so the nothing is coming and taking over everything, and the nothing is like just the absence of substance, the absence of caring, right? It is taking everything.
It's a void.
And she is connected to the nothing. So as the nothing grows, she diminishes.
Yeah, and it's done with this like interesting effect. So what they're doing, you see all the rippling evil clouds and the glowing over there. So what that actually is that's paint being poured into water. And there's probably some thickening that's going on there. But yeah, so that's actually like I don't know what
like a paint going into like a slurry water.
Yeah, there's some name for it. Like it's probably not like a paint tank or like a fog tank or something like that. But yeah, they're actually just pouring in paint and dark liquids in to kind of create that, and they're shooting it from underneath.
That's really neat.
Oh, interesting.
Because it looks really creepy and ominous.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. This is at the beginning here when we first enter Fantasia. I think that's where part of this pacing really gets off.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time learning about the existence of the nothing and getting to the Empress and the Ivory Tower, and a lot of time is spent there. And you really get familiar with these characters that you pretty much never go back to.
The rock biter and the bat,
teeny
the guy who
guy.
rides a bat, and the little guy who rides a racing snail.
They never have like any interaction with Atreyu. Yeah.
Well, the rock biter does at the very end.
At the very, like, the saddest part of this
yeah.
movie, where he's like, they look like big, strong hands,
It's very
don't
good.
they?
It's very
Yeah.
good.
But they couldn't hold on to my friends. Like, oh man, like as a kid, like that fucked me up. I was just like,
Oh yeah.
what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like someone who has hands that look really big and strong might not be able to save us, protect us. Dad? Daddy? This rock man is making me afraid.
Here's where
More childhood trauma.
This is where Nathan's childhood trauma comes in.
Yeah, and this cool like evil wolf dude, you know, he's just kind of there at the end.
The
and-
Gmork.
Yeah.
Who like chases Atreyu through the swamp of sadness, but
Doesn't
can't
know what he
find him,
looks like.
and then it's like,
I've been
well,
working off of this sketch right here. It's not very good.
It's of your
I
back
think
of
he
your
was in the
head.
swamp.
I'm pretty sure it was a girl.
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell.
Which is cool.
I don't judge.
What even is gender? It's a construct of the mind. It's not. It is not binary. They need to learn. So like, yeah, he goes on this aimless quest, and like he says Atreyu had been writing for weeks aimlessly. It's like, yeah, what is
Without
the
purpose,
plan?
I think it's what it says. But yeah, it's like my favorite moment of this aimless quest is he goes 10,000 miles. Note, that is further than Phoenix to Melbourne. I can basically circle the earth and be at 10,000 miles. But that's how far he had to travel, and it was just totally reasonable.
And it goes from being impossible to done
Yeah.
in the blink of an eye in a scene we don't even get to see.
Right.
But first, Artax sinks in the swamp of sadness.
His horse, yeah.
His horse.
Oh.
That's the toughest scene.
That is the
It is the
hardest
toughest
scene.
scene.
I was tempted to, like, if I didn't have to watch it for this, I probably would have just turned it off at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I had a hard time with
The
it.
horse couldn't control its own inner ennui.
Okay, no, the horse was deeply troubled.
Yeah, because, I mean, Atreyu looked really broken up and sad as the horse was going down, but yet tears streaming down his face.
He
and
says,
yet,
"You're my friend. I love you." And
but
Artax is like,
Atreyu doesn't sink.
"That's not enough for me, kid. I'm sorry."
Is there like a cool down period? It can only like sink a few people, like one person every half hour? Because, I mean, Atreyu was deeply sad once the horse went down, which is heartbreaking.
I think the argument there is the amulet has saved him.
Oh, that's a good argument.
The
The
amulet,
Orin.
it
The Orin,
protected
yeah.
him.
So he's got kind of an Ouroboros like snake icon amulet that represents like the princess and the kingdom and the princess's power.
That all 90s rappers fashioned their neckwear around.
And you know
going
who,
forward.
You know who owns the real one is Steven Spielberg.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me.
Of course. But like, what the fuck does a horse have to be sad about?
Can a horse affect its ability to no longer be sad with logic of please don't die,
You know
don't
what?
be
I
sad?
like to think in an early draft, only Atreyu sings and the horse has to carry on.
Well, I'll go be friends with this turtle who's a total jerk.
Right. I better befriend the snail.
So then he finds the turtle guy who like literally says, "We don't even care about how much we don't care about your problems. But you'll die too. We don't care."
I think it was something like, we mildly care, but not enough.
Yeah, it was, and then it blows snot all over him.
A bunch of times.
Ugh.
Yeah. Because that was wholly unnecessary.
So yeah, there's a lot of moments and like state of minds and like tests of character in this movie. You know, you have like, and these are things I think are designed to kind of bore into that childhood fear and the imagery of like, this is a bog that you will sink if you are sad. You know, this is a creature that cares nothing about anything.
So never be sad.
Exactly.
Push those emotions way down, kids.
And then there's like another test where, you know, like where they has to pass the Sphinx. And then they'll totally laser zap you if you have any doubts.
Any self-doubt.
Any self-doubt.
Like a healthy amount of
This
like
is-
self-reflection.
You know what? In hindsight now, it's kind of terrible that there's the swamp that punishes you for being sad.
Yeah.
And then they fry you for having any self-doubt.
They
I
hate
would
you
not
for-
pass any of these frickin' tests.
They hate you for being young.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, you know, you can sort of be
Only
like,
the young people rule the world.
This is very, there's a lot of heavy themes, so here's what we'll do. The turtle blows snot. Children will love this. They will stay for the snot, and then when we start to lose them again, let's have a small old person who eats worms. That will keep them. They love it.
We're skipping the most important part, which is this weird dragon dog thing
Oh, yeah.
that keeps winking at him
Falcor.
in the creepiest
Which
way.
he wakes up. He falls asleep and wakes up with Falcor,
like snuggling him.
having already journeyed
10,000
10,000 miles.
What was it? 9,864 miles or something ridiculous like that.
Almost the whole way.
Yeah. Well, and then he's like, do you eat them for breakfast? And he's like, no, wink. And you're like, okay, yeah, I totally believe you. That's not creepy at all. Stranger danger.
Also, like, Falcor's voice always bothered me as, like, for me not connecting to what I think a dragon should sound like. He sounded like a country music star to me.
Yeah, and he's kind of in the design of like a Chinese luck dragon. You know?
He is a luck dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he like has these like fur dog like features too. The nose is kind of like that of a dog dragon hybrid. Like,
And he has scales as well.
but furry scales.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super
A
unusual.
drog.
A drog.
But he's like an immediate problem solver because Trio's like, oh, well, I'm never going to make it to the Southern Oracle. It's 10,000 miles away.
He's like the Eagles in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't we just get this dude like in the first 10 minutes?
Well, and because then he passes
Those flying
the Oracle.
fantasy creatures are in such demand.
They really are.
I mean, you're really on their schedule.
Yeah, that's why you can never find one when you need one because you
Yeah.
have to make reservations months in advance.
Yeah, it's like a
Any
lot of
good
restaurants.
So, like, they go to the Southern Oracle. He passes the tests. The tests which are to make sure he has no doubts and knows his own worth.
So at this point, like, Bastian has been in this attic for like 20 hours and he's still reading, and it's night.
And he even says, like, I can't give up now. You wouldn't give up. And it's like, kid, it's a book. You can put it down and come back in a little bit. Like,
Yeah, and there's never any like teachers wondering where he is, dad wondering where he is. There's never any kind of tension except the tension that you as like an adult bring to it. Like,
right.
where is this fucking kid?
Yeah.
You know?
Where's Major Dad when like the storm of the century rolls in and this kid's been gone never showed up for school, been gone a long time.
Also, I'm pretty sure electricity existed in the 80s, so why we needed to light candles to read by, and it definitely would not put out that much light. But yeah, it was real weird.
So they learn. Oh, and then the second test of the Oracle is that he has to face his true self, which, like,
Yeah.
if you're 12, do you have a true self?
Yeah. And if it is it really the fact that a book reading 12-year-old in an attic of a high school is a terrifying fact to you as a warrior?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that someone sees your every move and knows, and like sort of screams at you a little bit.
It'd be
From
funny
time
if
to
the
time.
test of the true self only came when you were like 22. It's like, all right, you've taken a little bit of college. You've gotten like 2 girlfriends at this point. Now you're going to face your true self.
Well, but it's just weird because all it does is say, like, being somebody who prefers to read and dream is bad, and you should be afraid of that. And
It's bad, but it's also good. Like, they can't figure out if it's bad or good.
right.
Because the lesson at the end is that he's gonna, I will fight for my dreams, and then he shouts the name. It's like, we're not
But
talking
first,
about
I
that
shall
kid.
use
Just
my
shout the
power to
name.
bully the bullies.
Yes, exactly.
right.
Because Sebastian learns once he completes the test that he needs to find a human child outside the realms of Fantasia, and he tries to do that. They get separated from Falcor. He finds the Empress, and the Empress is like, "No, I've known all along."
No.
Yeah,
no.
so the nothing has gobbled up
Everything.
everything.
And that's where we get the super, like, cryptic, depressing rock fighter.
Now,
Yeah.
And then at this point, Fantasia is just like a series of like drifting asteroids in space.
Well, we forgot that he killed Gamork.
Oh, with a shard of glass, right?
Like
Oh,
a
yeah.
big stone thing who apparently didn't recognize him after chasing
The-
him
the
all
e-
through the
evil
world.
green-eyed wolf.
Yeah.
The evil green-eyed wolf was like, "Oh," it was British, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I like the nothing. Nothing is good. People who believe in nothing are easy to control, and people who are easy to control are easy to eat, or something like that. Doesn't he say?
Give you power. You're like,
They give you power.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Mhm.
but we're doing a kids movie though. Gamork? Can we?
Fight me now! The kid's like, take me on! Fight me! And then he lunges at him and then...
lunges right onto the shard. He doesn't have to do anything.
To be fair, it looks like, a lot of creatures in this world were not very good fighters.
Yeah, they were.
Are easy to kill.
Yeah.
So to be fair, Atreyu probably had it up on this wolf creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's killed some purple buffalo. He knows. And you guys, it's weird because they're purple. So
Yeah.
that's how we know it's not real Native
not
American
real.
imagery.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally what does it.
That's exactly what that is.
But then we find out that Fantasia is just a series of asteroids.
And then, so it's Atreyu and the Empress and Bastion at the very end. And the Empress is just like, "He's been with you all along. He was with you." We're not texts.
He's like super
He's been watching
pissed.
you when you were bathing. He was watching you.
He wasn't sure if you were a boy or a girl, so he really paid attention in that moment.
So she's talking about Bastion.
And Atreyu is appropriately like,
Pissed
"What
off.
the hell are you talking about, lady?
Not just that, but what the fuck? You sent me on this journey and I didn't even have to fucking go.
You didn't tell me anything to do. I rode around aimlessly for weeks.
I lost my horse.
And now you're telling me that it was just so some weirdo could watch and listen. Why didn't he help me?" He did help you. Did he?
Did he though?
Did
He
he?
laughed at you or screamed or something. He screamed at more or
A
less.
scream
yeah.
sneeze.
And, so Atreyu's pissed, and like they're like, she like then just stops talking to Atreyu and starts talking directly to Bastion and being like, "Bastion, do you not get it? This is all about you."
Knock, knock, knock.
Meanwhile, Bastion's like, "It can't be about me. It is about you, but it can't be. But it is.
Seriously, kid.
If it's about me, knock 3 times. Okay, these are for you. Knock, knock, knock. Can you just say a name, please?
Any name, it doesn't matter.
And Atreyu is like, why was I here for this?
Right.
Is he unconscious at this point?
And she's like, seriously, any name. It could even be my existing name that I have. Just say the name. And it's just so they're stretching this moment out as long as possible. There's a thunderstorm.
Impossibly long.
Yeah.
And then he does call out the name. Apparently, it's
and then there's another layer where she says, "There's also someone watching Bastion's story right now."
Right.
And referring to, so this is based off a book, referring to those readers, or for the movie, referring to us.
Mm-hmm. Creepy.
Yeah, so it's
she knows too much. Also, do you think she's an elected official as Empress? Do you think it's a constitutional monarchy, or do you think that's handed down from like Empress to Empress, and that there might be like a Game of Thrones Fantasia that we could see?
I think we're overthinking it a little bit. Maybe just a smidge.
I think we got to read the book.
Maybe we should have called it Chancellor. I mean, this is a German thing, so
yes.
Yeah.
So
but yes, so we have like a uber fourth wall breaking.
Mm-hmm.
So then he calls out apparently his mother's name of Moonchild.
You see, we are all being fudged at every minute, and you can never be truly alone. Kids should learn these things. It will delight them. And then we get him and the Empress in a black void, and she's got one grain of sand.
Mm-hmm.
All that is left of our world. And it's like,
Achoo!
oh shit!
That was all I could think of. Don't breathe.
And then, like, apparently he needs to make a wish, which isn't what they set up.
Yeah.
Right.
They set up that he needs to believe in his
It's all these
dreams?
tests about like believing in himself and being strong as a person, but then you've got all these other ideas about having imagination and your dreams, because this is effectively all of humanity's dreams and mythologies, because we see very kind of like Bavarian style fantasy. We see kind of a Chinese luck dragon. We see kind of Greek Sphinx, and so I think it was supposed to represent all of imagination. And apparently everyone has lost their imagination.
Everyone in the entire universe.
Existence. There's not a single little kid out there who imagines.
And so his wish is supposed to spark imagination.
The only thing I can think is the whole Disney, like, your wish is a dream come true or whatever. Like, that's but they're not the same thing.
A dream and a wish.
Yeah. And
That's
like,
true.
And then the funny thing is like he wishes for the exact same thing that already existed.
Yeah.
Because this little boy who had no idea could not have a single thought. I mean, he dreamed about unicorns. There were no unicorns.
Nope. It was just
It's just all unicorns now.
We see the rock biter again. We see the bat guy. We see the racing snail. We see the Empress. Like,
did he even meet the? Oh yeah, he read them. He's been watching them all along.
He sees Atreyu, and then they fly into the real world.
Yeah, that's
where he wishes.
Which kind of feels like either. Yeah, so the ending feels weird and rushed because all these threads that they don't touch on, like returning the book, his dad, going home, and instead he rides Falcor into the real world. He's flying down the streets of New York / Canada,
Vancouver,
and everyone is freaking the fuck out, and they can all see the dragon, and he's just buzzing right by the three bullies.
Yep. And the bookstore guy looks out the window and he's like, "Good job, kid. I was once like you."
But it aged me very quickly. I was a child only last week, and I made too
22.
many witches.
Okay. Can I tell you something?
Yes.
Have either of you, I'm guessing, Drea, there's probably no chance that, although they came out in the 90s, have you seen any of the sequels to The Neverending Story?
Only in the theater. So it's been a while.
So do you remember?
I feel like I saw the second one because the actor who was
Jonathan
the main,
Brandis.
who was the main character. I used to love the TV show he was on. I used to love Sequest, like with all my heart.
Sequest, yes, and Ladybugs, and
Yeah.
he was kind of a big
So
deal.
I probably saw it because I liked him and then saw that, but probably couldn't remember it or have any idea what the hell I was watching.
So, again, I'm not 100% on this, but I'm pretty sure that every time he makes a wish, there's an evil empress this time in Fantasia who collects it, and he loses a piece of his memory. So he is doing what you said, which is like he is costing his own mental and emotional health by making these wishes in Fantasia that she is collecting and stealing from him.
Nice.
That is not dark at all.
No, everything's fine.
Pulls the strings.
Pulls the strings. Wouldn't it be fun if your wishes made you disappear? And then all I remember about the third one is that Jack Black is one of the bullies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And apparently, according to IMDb, he's the only good thing about that movie.
Yeah. It's not false. Yeah, it's very weird.
Well, they don't explain it. Like, does he take the dragon to the real world, or is that just what he is imagining is the ability to do that? You
Turns
know what I mean?
out
Like,
he's in a coma. He was in the same car accident that killed Moonchild, his mother.
and all of this is some crazy German fantasy that
Yeah,
he's
it
having.
Pulls out to a snow globe. He's in a coma.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Okay. So,
Do you feel like Krull would be a good pairing with his, like, a double feature?
oh, I think it would be too much. I'd be like, oh my God, enough already. Get these wolf-like creatures out of here.
These real-life puppet animatronic, not really animatronic. Like,
So, maybe the best double feature of Krull than Neverending Story is catching just the last half of Krull and then
just
the first half of Neverending Story.
And then just the middle of Willow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just big pieces of these
it
movies.
sounds like a horrible weekend.
Oh my God. If you had a month between them, I think it would
That's
be
enough time to recover and then
You cannot do them one after the
sufficiently
other.
traumatize
It's
yourself
exhausting.
again. God.
See, like I would pair Krull or this movie or with something that was like opposite, like watch one of those and then Mannequin, one of these and then Splash.
How does this compare to Krull?
I think Krull is better. What do you think? Have you seen Krull, Drea?
I haven't. I feel like I started it and I was like, turn off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like parts of Neverending Story were better than Krull, but Krull is an experience that me as Nathan would rather rewatch.
Okay, what about you as Steven?
As Steven,
Your alter ego.
my L. Steven. Me as a child, I think I was more scared of Krull, but more interest. I remembered the moments more.
Yeah.
So I probably rewatched. That sounds weird. Neverending Story because it was safer.
Yeah.
than
that's
Krull
fair.
because
And it was more accessible. It was around more, as you said. People were showing it to you. It was constantly on TV. Like
Yeah.
I pretty much have like the dialogue memorized, and it not because I wanted to.
yeah, I must have liked it enough to see Neverending Story 2 in the theater.
I can see that.
So on a scale of 1 luck dragon to 10 luck dragons, how many luck dragons do you give the Neverending Story?
Ooh, this is a tough one. Because there's definitely times that I would have given this movie an 8, and then there's times where it's like, oh shoot, this is like 5-6 territory.
Okay.
I was fully ready to give it a 7, but I think that might even be too high because of the ending. Like,
Yeah.
I really felt like it's not that it totally messed up the ending, but it's kind of like they really just didn't stick the landing like they should have. You know, it was definitely kind of like the voiceover has saved. He went back to his home planet and everything's fine.
Where the hell did that voiceover come from at the end? Out of nowhere. We had not had any, right?
At the beginning, we had some. It was the
What?
narrator.
What did the narrator say at the beginning?
He definitely, when they started reading, it transitioned from Bastion's voice to the narrator's voice and then to the characters. It like tried to use it as like a conduit. But
I missed it 100%. But it wasn't narrating Bastion's life. It wasn't like, Bastion is a 12-year-old boy whose mom just
that's
died.
true. Yeah. It didn't do that.
I felt very weird about it.
I'm going to have to give it like the classic Nathan 6,
Okay.
which I feel like I give 50%.
I feel like I give most things a 7, so that's fair. What do you think, Drea?
So I'm trying to think. I feel like 1990s Drea, because then I'd be capable of actually watching this film.
Also, I fell asleep and had to rent it again.
Yeah. 1990s Drea probably would have given it like a 6 or a 7.
Okay.
For the time, because it does have a lot of. It is very ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Right. Like the puppetry is pretty incredible, and like the music I did really enjoy.
Falcor is great. Come on.
Yeah. I think 2019 Drea would give it like a 4 or 5. I had a fight falling asleep. I got really lost. The pacing was very off.
You do have to kind of like take in just your natural like genetic reaction to a movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, do I want to watch
this
I want to
again?
continue? Yeah.
Yes,
Have I checked how much is left in the movie? That's the thing. When you're going through movies from a responsibility for a podcast and not just like picking something up, like how many times did you check how much was left in the movie? Like I probably checked 3 times. You know?
So mine isn't how much is left in the movie. Mine is at what point in the movie do I give up and read the ending to the movie?
Yeah.
What point do I just go, fuck it, I'm going to go to Wikipedia.com and read what happens in the rest of this movie and then decide if I want to keep watching. That's, like, depending on where that happens in the movie is where I decide whether I want to, like, how I rate it. And it was pretty early on that I was thoroughly lost and confused and, like, what is going to happen? Because I don't understand what's happening to me right now. So we landed at 4.5 luck dragons. Like 4.5 winks from a luck dragon.
Wink. I'm a luck dragon.
Not for breakfast.
I'm going to give it a 4. Yeah, I don't like this movie. I think it's creepy. And even the parts of it that are nostalgic to me, like don't give me that same sense of like warmth and joy that say a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, or even like a Child's Play. Even though I know that's objectively a bad movie, I'm like, oh, look how cute, the doll is killing people. In this, it's just like, oh God, get on with it, Bastion, you suck. So I give it a 4. So now is the time when we do our deep cut recommendation. So something off the beaten path of what you would think someone would recommend for the Neverending Story. A slightly, 1 or 2 steps away from that's related in some way, but not super direct. Do you guys have one locked and loaded?
Yeah, I've got one. So a lot of this story is about like mythology and like the different cultures and like them all kind of existing on the same plane of existence. And so my deep cut recommendation is kind of along the lines of that. So I'm sure a lot of filmmakers, I don't know if everyone has heard of Joseph Campbell. Like he's famous for The Hero's Journey, which was influential to George Lucas. And that was initially my gateway into like Joseph Campbell. Like in my early 20s, I like bought a bunch of cassettes of like Joseph Campbell talks, like specifically like The Power of Myth.
Cassettes.
And so like I wanted to know more about movies, but he really didn't cover anything about movies. It's like it really was more about the similarity of mythology in different cultures and about the importance of story. That story are like the tools for living, that we tell each other these stories, and many kind of repeating stories with repeating characters and things like that. And so my recommendation would be The Power of Myth, which is kind of a sit down with Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers. It's kind of a series. You can get it on audiobook.
Oh, good, because you can't get it on cassette anymore.
No,
I can almost guarantee that.
I can loan you mine.
Okay.
Because I've still got them.
Can I also borrow the cassette of just the fight scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark?
I don't know where that is.
Can I also borrow a cassette player?
Anything that would hit anyway.
Actually, they did a video of The Power of Myth, so you can watch that too. So
good. I can use my eyes instead of my ears?
I think it's actually on Netflix.
Oh.
I'll
find it.
That's my recommendation.
If it's there, I'll post it. I like that. I really like that as a recommendation.
But I almost almost like it more as an audiobook. Like you're driving and you're thinking and you're taking, because it's a long series and it's kind of like 6 or 8 hours long. It's better to kind of take it in and kind of enjoy it.
Yeah.
Piece it out.
And I think that's an important tool to have in your toolbox. If you're a writer, if you're a filmmaker, if you're an improviser, if you're a comedian, like you sort of have to understand those things.
Yeah. And to be fair, there's, in terms of as a storyteller, there's less to get out of and more as like a person to understand different cultures.
Yeah.
That all these different, there's an important part where he says like, what is mythology? It's other people's religion, and what is religion is other people's mythology. Someone else's. And so the idea of that we're all kind of asking the same questions and repeating some of the imagery and to kind of understand existence.
And one of the important questions is, what would it be like if a giant turtle sneezed? We all want to know. We all must know.
So that makes my recommendation seem like hella shallow.
Oh.
So thanks for that.
Hey,
well,
we
can do Chrissy, and then
we gotta have a balance. Oh, okay, yeah, because mine's pretty dumb, because I couldn't think of anything.
Perfect.
So
just wait till you hear mine, and then we'll be good.
I want to recommend Game of Thrones. For a couple reasons.
I want to see the leap here.
You want to see the you want to see the difference between dragons. So, like, on a nerd level, you can be like, well, Falcor, the luck dragon, really is traditionally a dragon because he's got 4 legs and an elongated body, whereas the dragons in Westeros are actually wyverns because they've got 2 legs and wings. So there's that. But then also, so there's dragons, and it's sort of the story of mythology, and it's also, about the nothing that will overtake you if you let go of your dreams, right? The nothing in the form of ice zombies. And also it is a book as well as a TV show, and I think both are really well done. So you can read the book and imagine yourself what the world looks like. But you can also watch the series and see what the filmmakers have created that world to be, which is not exactly as I imagined it, but pretty darn good as far as not being disappointed from my imagination to movie what the difference is.
But you're buying it?
Yeah.
You're buying what they're selling?
Yes. And also, while I was watching the Neverending Story, I was regretting that I wasn't watching Game of Thrones. So that's that's what my connection
layers
is.
Within layers.
So many. Did I bridge the gap appropriately?
No, but that's okay.
Okay.
I'm going to take it in a totally different direction. So as I watched The Neverending Story, I was fondly reminded of a really wonderful evening I had in the last few months with a dear friend of mine who hosted a terrible movie night at his house, which had just some of the most awful pieces of shit I have ever seen in my
So if you want to see worse movies...
So if you want something that is worse than this, but still has sort of these physical animated puppetry things that are not just straight up CGI, because we get a lot of that now, right? There's plenty of terrible CGI options out there.
There really is.
I would recommend Trolls 2.
Trolls 2,
because
yes.
and also ties into that idea of this little kid needing to believe in his grandfather and having that belief is what saves the family, and believing in this fantasy and this kid being sort of the main character and driving force, who you also kind of think is just a little turd. So, I mean, I think that's the closest thing off the beaten path that I can kind of bring it back to.
Yeah, that's such a good movie. That's such a great party movie.
It was real bad.
Yeah.
That also doesn't really make a lot of sense or pace itself very well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities here, but I would definitely argue it is way worse. But along that vein.
And way better.
Yeah, way worse. But it's so bad it's good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. And then as a great companion piece to that is the documentary, Best Worst Movie.
Yes. Yes. Have you seen that?
I have not.
Oh,
it's good.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
It's if we want to talk about Swamp of Sadness.
Yeah. Serious. Oh my gosh, yeah, I think we really hit it out of the park. Is that right?
We really took it in many different directions.
But yeah, I mean, lessons were learned. I believe. I will follow my dreams. Just say your name. God damn it. All right. So where can people find everything that is Drea.
So you can find me on Twitter at PCFChick or on Instagram at Drea Kaufman, and it's COFFMAN. And like I mentioned earlier, I do the Owl Post, which is a Harry Potter podcast where we go chapter by chapter through the Harry Potter books and kind of discuss it a little bit, spoilers free. So a lot of people who haven't read are reading along. So that's real fun. Real hard not to spoil, though.
God, that's got to be.
It's real hard.
That is, I would not be successful.
And we're about 2/3 of the way through the 5th book, so
nice.
we're real deep and thick in there.
Yeah.
And you can find that on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or thenerdparty.com.
Yay!
Yay!
And where can people find the work of Nathan Blackwell?
So I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Squishy Studios, and we're working on a big project right now.
Yes.
And
I helped.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, we did one day of filming for it, just kind of like a pre-shoot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so there'll be more info as the months come down. It's a long-term project.
But it's going to be great.
Well, that's always the intent.
I believe in you. I believe in you. Moonchild.
I'll hold back the nothingness for you.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. Yay. And then did you say the Squishy Studios part?
Yeah, Squishy Studios. And then we've got a website, squishystudios.com.
Okay.
Really need to write another blog.
Yes,
and then how about you?
That?
I hear NCT now has a actual like physical front surface.
We do, yes. After many years of existing in a wind tunnel, we now have a front door and some nice windows. So come see me in physical reality at National Comedy Theater on Main Street in downtown Mesa, Arizona. Or if you're too far away for that, find me in the interwebs.
If you're 10,000 miles away.
Yeah. Or find a luck dragon and come see me.
Watch us like Bastion.
Yes. At NCT Phoenix on the Instagrams and nctphoenix.com, the website. And me personally is at KLens37 on the Instagrams. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Hey, you know what you could do that would just be super great? First of all, call my name.
To name the Empress.
Give the Empress a name. But also, like, hey, tell a friend. Give us a thing where you thumbs up or star or review. Or
Yeah, it sounds super cheesy, and we're not trying to make ourselves feel great. Like, if you leave a review on iTunes, it actually affects the algorithm. And people just kind of like scanning and looking at kind of podcasts. And the amount of reviews, it's one of those things that people check. Like, are people actually listening to this podcast? Are they giving it a good review? And so it's not about us and our egos. It's about finding, yes, maybe it is, okay? But
yeah, I really want to get sponsored by Quip.
What the hell is Quip?
It's like they sponsor every single podcast that I listen
or
to.
Foodbox, right?
Yes.
Audible.
Is that like the new? Yeah, I was gonna say, is it like the new Audible?
So yeah, it helps us and other people discover the show. So thanks.
Well, isn't there also a Facebook?
There is a Facebook
Group,
and a website, and it's all Most Excellent Pod.
Yeah, and I know this is like a big fan. Like, there are people who are uber passionate about this movie, so you could come and tell us how fucking wrong we are if you want. At least that's something.
Yes, tell us how we have made so many mistakes and do not understand what the movie is trying to say. Yeah, that's so much fun. Yeah, thank you again. As we always say on the Most Excellent 80s Movie Podcast, be excellent to each other, and remember, be excellent to each other, and party on, dudes.
Moonchild!